Yo, what's happening? I'm repurposing a Bleacher Report stream that I did on their platform around 4 o'clock Wednesday evening. Now, it was right around when Jalen Hurts addressed the media, and I did not see that he also said it was BS what Jay Glazer put out there about Dom and BG going to his house and saying you need to connect more. I touch on it a little bit towards the end. Just want to kind of put that out there. What I say still stands true to most levels. I do feel that this has been a topic we've previously discussed with Jalen prior to this time, so there's probably truth to it to some level. Did it necessarily play out the exact way that Glazer mentioned during the bye week? Sounds like no, but I still think to some level, this isn't new to us. It's probably been maybe the third or fourth time it's been flirted in the mix over the Philadelphia airwaves. So just for whatever it's worth. All right, with that, I'm done. We'll get to the stream. Appreciate it. Enjoy the show. What is going on, everybody? Good evening. Welcome on in to Bleacher Report. And we have some Eagles news. Bryce Huff? Who? I know. I forgot him as well. But Bryce Huff, activated? Practice window? I wonder what's in store. And all jokes aside, I think we all understand that there were huge expectations when you let Hassan Reddick go and you pick him up from the New York Jets, watching what he was capable of doing, getting to the quarterback with double-digit sacks last season. There was an idea that Bryce Huff would put on an Eagles uniform and be a menace, right? He'd be a stud. He'd be a game changer. He'd be a game wrecker to some degree. I forgot he existed. Is it possible that we can find a way, since Vic Fangio has gotten this group to play a great game as one? Is it possible that we can snag Bryce Huff and add him to this team that has found their identity defensively and get way more out of him? To the point where this defense that's already super special can gain another wave of excellence? I can't rule it out. Now, do I expect it to happen? I'm probably more in wait and see mode. I think just natural ability, he has to have more in the tank than what he provided prior to getting injured, right? Because you don't accidentally get double-digit sacks a season ago, especially now when you look forward and realize Jalen Carter is ripping through double teams. Nolan Smith is balling. Guys are capable of succeeding due to what's happening in the interior. And if Bryce Huff gets the luxury of playing with this version of Jalen Carter, the door is open. You can make more noise. You can get after the quarterback because of the attention that is driven in the direction of Jalen Carter. And I don't believe that this was happening at the same clip, at the same rate, week 1, week 2, week 3. But now, there's no doubt about it that Jalen Carter is a superstar. And it allows the Nolan Smiths of the world, the Josh Sweats of the world, and any other pass rusher to create life. And if Bryce Huff could get plugged in and be another body that can just help out with keeping guys fresher. I don't know how much fresher you can be when you constantly force the other team to go 3 and out, though. Oh, that's the beauty of it. That you're at the link, and here's Russell Wilson realizing that he's getting suffocated every time he drops back because Quinyon Mitchell's in coverage. Because Coop is ready to take down wherever you're looking to go with the football. He's right there to make a tackle within seconds. It's no joke. So I don't know how much fresher they can get when they're barely on the field anyway, and other teams can't even sniff 17 points per game against you. But imagine getting that next level added to your defense, and Nolan Smith could be a little bit fresher, and Josh Sweat can be a little bit fresher, and Bryce Huff can be fresher. I'm so fascinated to see what version we get. Now, it could be possible that Bryce Huff just had 1 year. And that 1 year gave Howie Roseman these eyeballs that lit up. And when he projected Bryce Huff to continue to strive for greatness, and if he could be plugged in with Vic Fangio, that he could take off. And maybe he just miscalculated because Bryce Huff, quite frankly, isn't as good as maybe they thought he was. That's not impossible, and it's very possible that that is the truth. But I just feel there's got to be more in him to some degree. Maybe it's not an 11-sack kind of guy, but can he be a 5-sack guy? Can he be a 6-sack guy? I'll take that right now in rotation. And I'm not talking about for the rest of the way. I'm saying if you were to see what he is capable of doing over 16, 17 games, if he's a 6-sack guy, 6.5-sack guy, let's use that skill set over the next handful of games and see what momentum we can build for the playoffs thanks to number 0. And if he's that, the defense gets scarier. This defense is already probably the least defense you would like to see. There's not an offense out there that is thrilled thinking of Vic Fangio and how he's able to push buttons to swarm your ass. You can't do anything against them. And if you do, you better maximize those 1 or 2 drives and then hope your defense could stop AJ and Saquon. Because after 1 or 2 drives of seeing what you're trying to accomplish with your offense, Vic Fangio has the answers mid-game. We saw that. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. All right, look, there's a few drives there. The Rams are establishing what? Because I can see a second half where there's, 3 first downs maybe? If you're lucky. Where there's 0 points scored in the second half. 3 points if you're lucky. This is the same defense that just had a muffed punt by Cooper DeJean right at the goal line, essentially, and also had a fumble that was punched out of Jalen's hands, and the Steelers couldn't do a damn thing with it, couldn't do a damn thing about it. Settling for a field goal, whoop-de-doo. That's not going to cut it when the Eagles have the ability to get their passing game going, which we just witnessed. And then, of course, with their shutdown D. So it's remarkable. And here's my Bleacher Report question for you all. It is, do you expect Bryce Huff to make an impact the rest of the way? It's a tough answer for me. It is. Because I do think he can do something. Will it be as great as I want it to be? Probably not. And I need to see it before I buy in. But do I think he can make some version of an impact? Yeah. I think we still walk away underwhelmed with the year that we get out of him. Because I said this about Jake Elliott in the past, and I can use this same logic to apply it to Bryce Huff. This is the time that matters so much that you can rewrite the script. We're all concerned about what version of Jake Elliott we are going to get in the playoffs, and it could come down to special teams. You could advance or not advance and somehow get eliminated earlier than expected if Jake Elliott can't hit his field goals. And we've seen him in 2 games in particular struggle so badly that you wanted to throw up. And if that ugliness is active, and that's what we're getting, when it's January, when it's winter, we're screwed. But if he ends up being cash, if he's locked in, then all those worries, they disappear. And then if they go and win a Super Bowl and Jake Elliott has 4 clutch kicks throughout that process, nobody remembers the down period. Which now let's reflect back to Bryce Huff. There is a chance here. that if he gets 2 sacks on Sunday, let's say, against the Washington Commanders, and he explodes, and it looks like he's shot out of a cannon, and there's a resurgence, and they figured something out, and the way that they play as a unit allows for him to be aggressive, and they get back to a skill set that works for him, instead of projecting and thinking that he could do 5 or 6 or 7 other things and put more on his plate. Get back to the basics, get back to the simplistic way Bryce Huff can go, pinning his ears back and on passing downs, let him attack the quarterback. If you just get back to his standard and let him cook, and let's say he gets 2 or 3 sacks in these last couple of games just to generate some sort of positivity here, and then we enter the postseason in game 1, he's doing the same thing. You have a chance to rewrite the script, and maybe we don't look at the year in its entirety as underwhelming because he plasters through the other team's offensive line enough in these last couple of regular season efforts, plus whatever happens in the playoffs. I need to see it first, but I'm not ruling it out. There's actually a side of me that goes, the way this year is trending, the way this team plays with toughness, attitude, it would make sense for him to return. He had the wrist problem. Maybe behind the scenes, you're able to stay in shape, stay in the condition you need to. It's not a leg. It's not an ACL. It's not an injury that keeps you off your feet. So if you're able to still keep your conditioning right the best you possibly can, because it was a wrist and a hand issue, then maybe it doesn't take as long to get back into game shape, although nothing compares to game shape except for putting your hand in the dirt and being in the trenches, for whatever it's worth. But I don't know. Maybe he's not as far back as we thought he'd be because of where his injury was. I don't know. I'm speaking out loud here, hoping for the best and expecting him to make noise. I just don't know how much noise yet until I get a feel on exactly what he is at this particular time. But it is pretty wild to spend that much money in the offseason, knowing you need to target defensive ends and just need help on the defensive line, as that is a brand that Philadelphia Eagles football is willing to commit to. You bring him in and you spend that much cash, and Howie Roseman has done so well with Quinion, so well with Cooper DeJean, so well with Zach Bond, so well with CJ GJ, so well with Nakobe Dean, that something so important to the identity of this football team heading into the season just hasn't even been available for you, and you forgot about it. I'm not just joking that I forgot about him. I truly forgot about him. I think a lot of people did. But when I saw all the beat reporters mention that his window was getting activated, I went, oh, yeah, that's right. It would be really awesome to see him settle in and show off why Howie gave him that money, why Howie thought that there was more in his bag. Whew. If they're allowing 16.9 points per game or so right now, if he could ball, and I mean ball, if he can ball, we talking 14 points? Talking 15 points? How much more chaos can you create? How much more frustration is going to be happening on the sidelines because other teams' quarterbacks are going to stand there with their helmet on? I saw somebody bring this up in the comments about a week ago. There was a shot that happened on the broadcast of Russell Wilson, and he was waiting throughout those 10 and a half minutes to get his offense back on the field, thinking that he was going to get a chance. It's moronic. They just carved you up. Took the entire clock off the board. That's special. That's special. So, just all good stuff. There is more to mention here. So, Jay Glazer put out a little video a day ago. Fox Sports did. And it brought up how when all the, when all the issues went down with AJ and Brandon Graham and the drama happened, they addressed it immediately. Jalen and AJ got up in front of his team during one of the first team meetings, dapped each other up, and said, we're good. And Brandon Graham apologized for being a distraction, and they got ahead of it, and then they moved on, right? And in the back end of the blurb, there was a story that nobody knew about, apparently. And Jay Glazer went on to say that during the bye week, Big Dom and Brandon Graham went to Jalen Hurts and said, you got to do a better job of communicating with some of your teammates and to connect with them. And then Brandon Graham went on Instagram earlier on Wednesday morning and just commented lies. Whether it is a lie, whether it's not, we've heard Jalen Hurts needed to do a better job communicating and connecting with his teammates prior to this story. So whether that actually happened, whether it didn't happen, whether maybe Brandon Graham just doesn't want that to be public, and maybe they're trying to look at it from a Jalen Hurts angle. Look, we don't want people to know that we had to ask Jalen to do this, so we can easily go out and say that that's fabricated and we move on from there. I don't know. The reason I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it is I actually thought everything Jay Glazer mentioned was all positive stuff. So it's not as if this is really going to break or fracture any relationships in the locker room that any of this information got out there. It's all good. Even if, let's say, Brandon Graham is trying to just make Jalen Hurts look better and doesn't want that out there, even though him and Big Dom did speak to Jalen Hurts about it. Jalen Hurts took it as well as anybody could. Okay, I do need to do that. Okay, I understand. Quarterback is more than just playing the position and throwing the football and reading defenses and knowing coverage. It's also being one with these men and wanting to fight with these men. And the more I'm willing to give that energy, the same applies for everyone who looks at me as the leader of this locker room. And if that is the case, the fact that Jalen took it on a full head of steam and said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to meet with Nick Sirianni. I'm going to meet with my offensive lineman. I'm going to meet with some of the guys on the defensive side of the ball so we can continue to create a relationship there. It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. So whether it did happen, didn't happen, whether it's being blown out of proportion and it happened to a minor extent, we've heard this in the past with Jalen. So it wouldn't surprise me if in some way, shape, or form, there have been talks about that part of his leadership taking another step. And I believe that Jalen Hurts is the type of personality and the type of dedicated quarterback that he takes that and really understands the importance of what it means to be on the same page and what it means to get to know people on a deeper level and how much that adds value to taking the football field together and wanting to work hard and wanting to win and wanting to battle with them next to you. It goes a long way when you care about them more than just you're on my football team and we're wearing the same laundry. It's I care about you. I care about your family. I care about your kids. I want you to succeed. I want you to get that next contract. I want you to have the next contract with me and we can continue this surge together. All that adds value, and Jalen knows that, and I think Jalen does a good job of working on every area of his game because he's obsessed. He's obsessed with the craft. There's no way, shape, or form when we walk away from the Jalen Hurts experience one way, whether he's here for 15 years and he's a franchise quarterback forever or however the Jalen Hurts experience goes, I'll never walk away saying he never applied himself fully. I know I'm going to get the best version I possibly can effort-wise from Jalen. Whether that ends up being good enough for 15 years or not, that'll play itself out. But just in regards on how he focuses on the game, how he focuses on all the little details outside of the X's and the O's and the scheme and the matchups that you're about to face, outside of that and more of the intangibles and the little stuff and just all of it, all that adds so much to the quarterback position. I think he does so much to try and clean up every area that he has deficiencies with, for whatever that's worth. So that's sort of how I'm handling day 2 of the Jay Glazer report and Brandon Graham debunking it. But regardless, it doesn't really matter. It was all positive stuff for me, and I still feel very positive about this team as they gear up for a Washington Commander squad next. And all I think about is their quarterback, essentially, the Commanders quarterback, him sitting there realizing what he's up against this week. Because when you get a taste of it the first time, it's overwhelming, it's overbearing, and you understand you're not on the same page as this Eagles front. you cannot compete with this Eagles front. So it's essentially going to be a very long day at the office, and you've already experienced it. And when you know deep down you don't have the answers to counter what they are going to bring, you're screwed. So you're essentially walking into 4 quarters of hell. And you know that. And when you know that prior to the first snap of the game, more times than not, it ends rough. So I can't wait to see how the Eagles beat them down, and I can't wait to see how the rest of this NFC shapes out, because we watched the Detroit Lions lose to Buffalo. We're keeping our eye on the Minnesota Vikings. We're seeing how potentially we can snag that number 1 overall seed in the NFC, because it's still alive. And it is so important. It is so extremely there. And that's why I don't want to do anything silly like try to limit Saquon Barkley right now, because there's still a really important piece to the puzzle available for you to take. You have to keep going. Until it is ruled out, until it's impossible mathematically to get that number 1 overall seed, I don't want to take any sort of snaps away from Saquon Barkley, unless it's because your passing game is phenomenal and elite. And if your passing game is phenomenal and elite, and you're just not getting the same amount of carries because A.J. Brown is popping off or Devontae Smith is cooking, then that's a different story. And maybe that's your way of managing that, even though they're definitely still trying to make a push for that overall record. For an individual like Saquon to put on an Eagles uniform for the first time after his tenure with the Giants and have a chance to make history, they definitely have their eyes glued on that too. So it's a weird dynamic. It's a weird sort of situation to be in. They have to marry all of these. You don't want to get him injured. You want to make sure that he's as healthy as possible. You want to go for that number 1 seed. You also want to see if you can get the record. There's a lot here, but that's why these people get paid a lot of money to make these decisions, and I just got to expect they make the right one. So with that, we're going to wrap things up here. I can't thank you all enough for kicking it here on Bleacher Report. Thank you guys so much. I love you, and I will see you all Sunday afternoon after the big game against the Commanders. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody, and go Birds.